Hey guys, this is Tater Buzz. So I'm going to be doing a bit of a different video. This here is about my Hi-power. I want to be showing you how I turn these grips into this. This process required a laser engraver. I know there are probably a lot of you watching this channel that don't have one, but they're becoming more and more easily available. The prices on them have come down, and you know, some of you may have friends who have access to them, or a local makerspace. A lot of different places are getting these in. So I'm going to be showing you how I turn this into something completely different. So first and foremost, I want to apologize for my method of recording. I don't have a good screen capture program on my computer, so I'm going to just record the screen. Now the first thing you're going to need to do is get a picture of the grips you're using. Obviously you can get one off the internet like I've done here. These are your standard high-power grips. If you're using a 1911, you can just find a picture of 1911 grips, or even just take a picture of your own and upload it to your computer. You only need one side unless the grips are very different from one another. There's a slight difference on the high-power grips, as you can see here, but for the most part these grips are exactly the same. So I'm really only going to need one of these. You'll also need to pick what you want to engrave on it. Now, as an inside joke with a couple of my friends and I'm going to be engraving this, the Pabst Blue Ribbon logo, onto my Hi-power's grips. You can engrave pretty much anything you want. If you have any experience with a laser engraver, you'll know that you need to have a certain type of image or do some editing to get it to work right. Nice black and white images like this are very easy to engrave and require very little to no work at all to get ready to engrave. Alright, so now that you've got your design and a picture of your grips, what you're going to need to do is trace the outline in some sort of paint program. You can use Microsoft Paint, you can use Photoshop. I prefer GIMP. It's G-I-M-P. You can download it for free for Mac and for Windows, and it has a lot of functions that Photoshop does, but it's free. So that's what I'm going to be using today. And all you have to do is create a new layer and then trace with the line tool, trace around the grip. So if you are using GIMP for this, the first thing you're going to want to do is create a new layer. So go to Layer, New Layer, just make sure it's transparent and the same size as the image you already have, and then just press OK. Now what you're going to do is you're going to trace this grip with, you know, something like a line tool or the pencil tool like I'm using. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want a rough outline of the grip so you kind of know where you can place your image, and so that you'll also have a reference when you're working with the laser engraver. So let's get that done now. Alright, so as you can see, I have a pretty rough outline. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just to kind of give you an idea of where to center the engraving and also your grip later on the laser. As you can see, I've also marked the hole for the screw. You'll probably want to do that too, just so, you know, again, you're mindful of where you're going to place the image you want. Now what you need to do is select the bottom layer, and then go back to Layers and delete that layer. So now you just have the outline of the grip. This is what we're going to be using to help place the image. So now let's create a new layer, make it white, press OK, Layer, Stack, Lower Layer. There you go. You've got a rough outline of your grip. Okay, so now we're going to place our image that we want to engrave. All you need to do is open it with GIMP or your other programs. Go to Edit, Copy, go back to your main image, and then you're going to want to paste it. Now as you can see, it's way too big currently. It's much larger than the grip. So what you're going to want to do is resize. Now you can resize the image itself, but the more you resize it, the lower the quality is going to get. So it's better to resize our main image. So let's get rid of the logo first, and then go to Image, Transform, or actually no, sorry, Scale Image. And now let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's go to 1700. Scale. It's going to scale it. This may lose a little bit of quality, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to zoom out a little so I can see everything. And now we can paste our logo back in. See, that's much better. Now you simply have to decide where you want the logo, exactly how big you want it to be in proportion to the rest of the grip, and if you have to align it around things like this one screw hole here. I think I like it here. There may be a little bit that's cut off because my grips may not necessarily have the same size hole routed out, but it's going to be pretty close. And I don't mind if there's a little bit here that is, covered up. So I'm simply going to anchor it, and then there we go. I can remove this here, which would interfere with my engraving, by going to Layers, and then Stack, select Previous Layer, and then just erasing whatever I want to erase. I need to make my tool much bigger. See? Now, that little mark here will not interfere with the actual engraving. Once you're happy with how your grip's going to look, what design you want, and how it is going to be positioned on the grip, we're just going to export this file. So just export it as whatever you'd like it to be. I'm just going to name it grip. The file type doesn't matter with most lasers, so I'm just going to save it as a JPEG. And then we'll export that. 100% quality. And there we go. Now if you're using an image that you can't just straight up mirror, like this one, if I were to mirror this entire image to get the right grip, these letters would be backwards and it would look terrible. So what you'll want to do is make sure you've selected the layer with the outline of the grip, go to Layers, Transform, and then flip it horizontally. Now you can drag your image over by selecting this layer and just move it straight over, and that way the image is not going to be mirrored. Now I've moved this layer over. Ignore this alpha space. It's not going to do anything. You can reference where exactly you have it placed by just opening the image and kind of double checking where exactly it lines up on the grip. These look pretty good. I think I'm going to be happy with how these are both placed. So once again, we're just going to export this file and then send it over to the laser. Alright, so if you're starting with brand new grips, you're not going to have to do this step. If you're refinishing old grips like these, safety check by the way, you're going to have to refinish them. So what I'm going to do is sand all this old nasty texture off. See, the checkering is nearly gone, which is why I'm replacing these. And I'm going to get down to flat, bare wood. That way there's a good surface for it to engrave on. However, if you want to engrave fake ivory grips, some sort of plastic grips, all you need to do is order them and engrave straight onto them. Or even brand new wooden grips. You can do the same thing. So I'm just going to go and sand this. Don't need to show you guys how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. So catch up with you in a second. Alright, so after a bit of sanding, here's what I'm left with. Pretty fresh, actually pretty decent looking walnut grips. Now on to the engraving. Okay, so before we engrave, the first thing I want to do is measure this grip, and I'm going to measure it in centimeters because my program uses millimeters. So, as we can see, it's about 9.5 centimeters tall, and at the base it is right about 4 centimeters wide. Alright, so this here is my laser engraving software. This is laser DRW, like laser draw. It's just the program that came with my laser and will probably come with pretty much any laser you order from eBay or Amazon or whatever. Essentially what we have to do is first of all create the right size space. So you go to File, New Layout, and I like to do 200 by 200 millimeters. It gives me plenty of surface area to move the image around. So just going to do that. And now we're going to open. Save changes, no. You can also import a file instead of open, but for the first one I always like to do the open. So I'm going to go from my desktop, which is where this file is. And there they are. These are the two grip panels. So let's grab this one first. So here it is. Now we took measurements before, and we're going to resize this grip itself using the measurements marked on the side of the screen here. You can also, well, for my particular image, I can't just resize here because the image itself is wider. If you had cropped the image right around the grip, then yeah, you could resize it here. But I'm just going to kind of measure it by looking at the sides here. Alright, so I determined that my grips are actually about 90 centimeters high, or 90 millimeters, sorry, 9 centimeters high. I've rotated the image a bit because I want to engrave the grip straight up and down like this, and I'm just going to reference it to the side. So this is about right. It's a little bit too small. I'm just checking with this arrow here, which shows 90 from the top. Pressing the top, pressing the bottom. It looks to be just about right, maybe a little bit larger. We can also reference the top here. I've moved it over a bit, so we're right at the edge of 60, and then this goes to about 25, so that makes this top part about 35 millimeters wide, and we can double check that on the actual grip itself. So this here's my grip. As you can see, it is in fact 35 wide, so it looks like we have that measurement perfect. Now we want to position the grip just kind of so that everything is inside of this little, inside of the square here, so none of the edges are extending outside of the area. Now we'll want to fire up our laser. So as you can see, I have a little sheet of MDF in here. You want something flat, not too thick, and something that's engravable. So you could use MDF, piece of plywood, another thin piece of pine or some sort of wood. You could maybe even get away with cardboard. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to trace out the grips. Now that everything's turned on, we're just going to make sure this is in frame, which it is. Click engrave, engrave again. And then we're ready to engrave as soon as we adjust the settings. Now we're going to do engraving sunken. Speed, I like to do 127 millimeters per second. A little bit slower to get a better engraving. But for the tracing, we can up the speed to, let's say, 140. 150 is kind of the max you want to do. You'll lose detail beyond that. Alright, now let's start engraving. Okay, so now we have our outline, and as you can see, The grip fits in it perfectly. Now, we're going to use this as our reference when we engrave the image. Now there's only one thing left for us to do, and that's to get rid of these outlines. So we can just engrave just the logo here. And the way we do that is by going to graph. We're going to graph a rectangle. Just draw a rectangular shape. Make it solid. Rectangle. Another one for the top. Solid. Now watch, if we change it to white, it erases the outline we've already made. So we're going to do that with both of these. Alright, so now you can see that I've erased everything around my logo here. That's the only thing left. And that's the only thing that'll engrave when I start the engraver again. So now we're going to make sure that the grip is perfectly aligned with our outline. But be careful not to move this base piece here, because if you shift it, it's going to be a little bit off from where it engraved before. That's why I like to always place this up straight into the corner, so that if I do accidentally bump this piece, I can easily reference it back to where it was. Now we've got it lined up, all ready to go. Make sure our laser settings are good. Lower the speed back down to 127, and we're going to start engraving. Okay, so now I'm just going to add the other side grip, the left side grip. And we're going to do that by going to Graph, Bitmap, find the file. Here I have it on the desktop. And I'm just going to place it in like so. And this way I can make sure that they are the exact same size. So this one has been rotated 12 degrees. I'm going to rotate this 12 degrees the other way. 12.5, 12.5. So now they're rotated the exact same angle, and I can measure them, get them to be the exact same size. This one is 107.69 at the moment. We need it to be 108.876, so let's just type that in. 8.876. Enter. Okay. So now they should be completely proportional. You can delete the grip we've already used and prepare this one to engrave on a different section of our panel. Okay, so here are the finished grips. As you can see, the logos turned out pretty good. Their placement's just about the same. The hole on the right side grip was a little bit bigger from being worn down, but as far as placement, it's about the same. So I think they're going to look pretty good. Alright, so here it is. I put the grips back on, and here's how it looks. Not too bad. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a light stain on these grips, and then I'm going to polyurethane them to give it a nice protective finish.